Hello, everybody. Cheers to this, cheers to you, and cheers to 2021. I'm back on deck, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you back to this little episode here on how COVID is affecting our self-esteem. Once again, I drink and toast to a new year. Gonna have a quick sip here. Get this throat, let's say, ready for a little bit of an episode here. We'll be going for about 10-15 minutes or so, and it's great to have you here. But would you believe, we've been now through more than 9 months of this COVID situation. And I don't know about you, but I certainly have noticed a difference in mentally, a difference emotionally, a difference physically. All of it kind of really hammers us hard. And I want to really take some time because I know that I'm not the only one who's been through this here. And I also want to encourage you all to really learn from this situation so that you actually come out on the other side. Because this year, I firmly believe that if last year was a bit of a struggle, a bit of challenging, it was like, friction and this and, change here, change there and all of that. Well, guess what? This year now is your opportunity to raise up again, because typically it always is like this, that sometimes things go really hard and then it's really a time for re-emerging, for invigoration, for resurrection and re-engineering. And so again, very warm welcome to all of you guys for joining me here. I would love to hear from you now personally in the chat window. What have you noticed that, COVID has done that affected you in either way, whether it was spiritually, emotionally, physical, mental? Let me know, because I'm only one person here and there's so many more out of us than me here. So I'd love to see some comments here in the chat box. I can certainly, let's say, vouch, and I'm going to be very transparent and open here with you today. I certainly have noticed that COVID hit me in many ways. As you know, I run a business, and this business pretty much got affected big time through, let's say, in financial regard. Why? Because the business was very much reliant on face-to-face events and face-to-face delivery. So if you can imagine that as soon as, let's say, COVID hit and all the events were canceled, straight away, no events were taking place, and I only had one event happening in the entire year. Now, obviously, everything moved virtually. So that was a big change for me to deal with. And financially speaking, it was a big drop. Then there was the social distancing, all the beautiful bars and restaurants that we all love, mingling in, talking, networking at, enjoying nice food and wine and all of this sort of stuff, just gone and dusted for a long time. Travel restrictions. I love travel. You probably do too. But then suddenly we weren't able to do that. I mean, we all know it. 13 weeks of homeschooling. I've got one child. Guess what? I felt really torn between running a business and pivoting and shifting that business from live and face-to-face to online. And then, of course, having to look after a 6-year-old that really wants to be stimulated and who I don't want to be, planting in front of a TV screen or an iPad or something, or TV games all the time. So having that sort of, let's say, that friction happen internally, well, you might relate to this if you're a parent, if you're a business owner, if you, are employed and you had to do things, but you also had to look after the little ones at home. So all of this sort of stuff we've been facing. And then, of course, Christmas and New Year came. What happened there? Well, it was suddenly Christmas and New Year with less people around. A lot of people that we normally would meet up with overseas, with our family and friends over there. Well, guess what? They were actually restricted and were only allowed one guest at a time and were not allowed out. Or they also were pretty much challenged by the fact that there was a curfew and a time by which they had to all be home, but only one guest. Imagine now that you want to celebrate the transition from an old year into a new, from a challenging year into new opportunities, and you can only welcome one person there. Very challenging. I remember a friend of mine who, they do really well. They're financially really well off, and suddenly they wanted to celebrate their birthday prior to Christmas, and they found themselves on an empty car park, all concrete, one car, eating McDonald's because there was no ways to eat and dine out and enjoy some good company and some good food and wine. So all of this sort of stuff, we are really in a situation that, if you think about like the impact of such drastic situations on how we think, how we feel within, and also then how we take action or refrain from doing so. How many people would have slacked off? How many people would have, over this period of time, drank too much, eaten too much, put on the so-called COVID kilos and all that sort of stuff? Stopped really going to the gym. And of course, sometimes it was imposed because gyms were closed very often. So all of this sort of stuff, guys, I really want you to, tune in with yourself for a moment and give yourself the opportunity now to kind of reflect and learn so that you can grow from here. I see, by the way, chat, welcome back here. The inability to travel interstate to see your customers. Yes, one of those big ones. I mean, we've all had these challenges to deal with. And I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one who felt the mental and emotional impact of that. Anyway, if I now were to just tune in a little bit with the feelings, tell me how you've been feeling over a sustained period of time since COVID hit back in March. Is it possible that a lot of positive sentiment has moved to a little bit more negativity? All right, let me describe some. Feeling lethargic, feeling deflated, perhaps a little bit sense of purpose, loss of direction, disconnection, the fact of longing for social contact, craving for that interaction and dialogue, suddenly being confronted with yourself, and sometimes confronted with a lot of loved ones that you spend a lot of time with, especially if you were in quarantine or, where social distancing applied and suddenly you were not allowed to anyone. I mean, feeling torn, trying to do something over here and then having to attend to other things over there and juggling it all the time. Borders are open, borders are closed. Yes, you can travel. No, you cannot travel. Yes, you can now go and dining. No, suddenly stopped again. And all of this sort of stuff. Meet people, friends, or not. Working from home, another big challenge here. And all these sort of challenges, suddenly not seeing your teammates anymore, your clients, your friends, your suppliers. It's challenging. I definitely have felt stuck. I'll vouch for it. I definitely have felt unfulfilled and also a bit uninspired at times. And it just showed me again how much I value this face-to-face contact, how much I value working with people in a room like full with people and present and train and coach and all that sort of stuff. And then suddenly it wasn't able anymore. So it's a lot of reinvention here. And I don't know about you, but I also found it at times a little bit challenging with one of the habits that I always have preached to everyone, which is feeling gratitude, counting my blessings amidst this situation. Who else is there with me? Just let me know. I'd be very curious to see if I'm the only one who's feeling challenged in that way. Anyway, with all of this being said, I'd like to share with you that there was a little bit of an insightful moment just recently that happened for me. As in my pursuit and getting ready for business again this year, I actually took on a second time an emotional intelligence assessment. And like I said, it's the second time. And I just wanted to kind of see how could I kind of quantify by a diagnostic tool that is objective and provides benchmarks to see where I'm at compared to 2 years ago. And guess what? It's amazing when you compare these sort of reports, right? And the scores that you come out with. I'm just going to give you a quick glance here. But for example, here, these scores on page 6, it was really interesting to see how a lot of scores had pretty much stayed on par. But then there was a few of them, if I specifically zoomed in, for example, on self-awareness and self-recognition and that sort of emotional intelligence cluster, my self-esteem had taken a big hit, a bruise, and it was quantified. I cannot other than recognize that something has actually gone back since COVID hit. Now, this might be the same for you. You might also have other things that changed for good or for worse. And again, how will that affect you in your personal life, in your relationships, in your business, or internally? I wanted to take some time for you, but I certainly noticed that as I'd gone through this and I saw suddenly the Achilles heels right now, I straight away knew how to do something about it, because once you know what's challenging you, what's bothering you, where you've gone back. You also know what you can do next to actually take yourself up again, dust yourself off, and do much better. And typically, when people actually have a lower self-esteem, imagine now when they apply for a job. Typically, when people feel less self-confident, they won't get the opportunities as they would the same if their self-esteem is built high. The same also applies in sales and business development. If you are trying to negotiate, but you're not really fully feeling confident within and valuing yourself, you might easily drop your pants and give discounts. And you easily might then also come across as a little bit too much wanting the business and therefore being desperate. And that again backfires. And so you notice here that the personal level, your attitude, your mental well-being, your mindset, all these words that we use for it, once you're really in the zone, when you're in the momentum, it's so much easier to make things work for you. But if you're not there, everything starts to become more difficult, and the results then also show on the outside world. But it all starts within. And so I wanted to kind of start a new, let's say, episode here in my live streams to not only, first of all, be open and transparent with you that I'm like you. Secondly, to also give you some kind of food for thought to reflect and kind of zoom in on a few areas that you really might benefit from, so that you can grow again in 2021 and make this a wonderful year where you can catch up on whatever might have dropped off in 2020. And last but not least, I want to give you some guidance, like in terms of what can you do to get there? How can you get there sooner? How can you fast track your results? And again, help to reprogram your mind for the better, for success, as opposed to, by default. I got 3 lessons here that I want to share with you. First things first is it's important to reflect and to tune in with yourself. And I know that a lot of people might have already, towards the end of last year, taken some time to do some, New Year's resolutions and some business planning and all that sort of stuff. But really, that only is second. What about you? What about you personally? Where are you at on a scale from 0 to 10? Where have you been over this last few weeks and months? Because that's where you are, that number on a scale from 0 to 10 will define how much of your plans and New Year's intentions and resolutions you will actually be pulling out or carrying out, and of course the results that you will have as a consequence. The chances are that if you're not really positively programmed inside in your mind, and you're not feeling as confident and poised as you could be, is that you actually are going to take things less seriously, and you're going to procrastinate more easily on things that are important and that matter. Why? Because you don't feel like it, because you can't motivate yourself and all this sort of stuff. And like I said, I've been challenged with that myself, and I had to do certain things to get myself back out, and I'm still doing that today. And it's all a matter of habit to really work on the most important thing here. Your business is always a reflection of you personally. If you're a business owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you are working for somebody else, you know that if you're in sales, that you sell really well when you feel great about yourself. And you also know that the opposite is true too. So anyway, with that being said, so lesson 1 is it's important to reflect and tune in with yourself and capture it in words. The reason why journaling is so important is that it gives you a chance to reflect and articulate in words what you otherwise would think about, but not necessarily verbalize. And so putting it down in words is really essential as part of lesson 1. I've actually also noticed that I had a relationship in which I felt really challenged, and where I felt that I couldn't really communicate and have my point being taken across, but also being listened to and all of that, and therefore have a really good exchange. And so I took the opportunity to actually write down a letter and send it to this person, so that at least they wouldn't take offense at me being honest. And at least, and also it was good for me too, to express my feelings and thoughts in words, and then have them come back to me later on. So whether you journal for yourself, or you kind of send a letter as I did earlier and send it across to somebody else, it helps you to reflect and come to terms with situations and work through it rather than keep going around and around in circles. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't. Of course, I'm here as a resource to you. The second point that I wanted to share with you as part of this story and how COVID is affecting us in terms of our self-esteem is that as we know better, we can do better. Because imagine now, you might really have felt challenged and negative and deflated and unmotivated and all of that sort of stuff for a while, a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe even months. So if you're there, sometimes it's very hard to see, like, how can I raise above it and how can I take myself out of this situation? Well, guess what? Sometimes it pays off to seek external guidance, to use a tool as I did, for example, like this one here, because suddenly, I'm not drowning in information and possibilities or options. Suddenly, I see exactly right in front of me where my strengths and where my weaknesses lie. And I found that really being very important. Alternatively, you can seek external advice and go and talk to somebody that can listen you out, and listen for the very things, and then kind of point you in a direction that kind of really helps to make it simple. Because overwhelm stands in the way of great success. If we feel drowning, if we don't know where to go, well, not knowing hurts us more than knowing, because as soon as you know, you can do something about it. It's the same as when we're sick. You don't like not knowing what's wrong with you. You want to have a doctor then tell you what's wrong and what medication they prescribe. And so that's exactly what we're talking about here as well. So as you know better, you can do better. Last but not least, number 3, as soon as you know what's important and you can do something about it, then of course it will only get done if you actually schedule it. So schedule the things that are important. Carve them out in your diary. Carve them out in your calendar. Make sure that you got reminders on your iPhone and so on, so that you keep doing what is important. And we also know if you are starting to do something new, it will easily take you 60 days, not 21 days, which is very counterintuitive. A lot of people preach the 21-day sort of change because chicken hatch eggs in 21 days. But guess what? You and me, we're not chickens, we're people. And so it's important that we give ourselves 2 solid months, 60 days, to learn and adopt and make it kind of automatic, a new habit. So schedule it. If you want to lose weight, guess what? Gym work will help. Yes, it will. And you also know that it won't happen with one time a week. You probably will have to have certain sessions. And we all are time poor. So when are you going to do them? Early in the day, later in the day, during your lunch break, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times? It all depends on the goal that you've got. So is it about losing a lot of weight? Is it about being more fitness? Is it about being mentally more sharp? Is it about building your energy levels, your self-esteem, your confidence, whatever it might be? It's all important that you schedule or set aside time and allocate it up front for a longer period of time, because only then you will actually ever get to it. So that's pretty much it. Tell me about your experience, guys. I know that we've been going for about 18 minutes, so I'm going to actually now cut it short, but let me know. And most importantly, I'd love to hear about your experience. I've been very open and transparent about sharing mine. And I also invite you tomorrow at the same time, which is 7:30 p.m. Adelaide time, for another little episode on rapport building. I noticed and realized earlier today that COVID is giving us a wonderful opportunity to build rapport and allow your businesses to thrive as a result. So if you like the idea of building rapport with people, join me again tomorrow, same place, same time, 7:30 p.m. Adelaide time. Appreciate you guys joining. Thanks also for commenting. Great to see you again, chat. And I'm sure we will be catching up very soon in your regular sessions here as well. All right, guys, have a wonderful evening. If you're in Australia, if you're in a different time zone or on the other side of the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. And again, thanks for joining. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.